Good morning, 6AMERS. The 6AMERS began in April of 2020 in the heart of the pandemic. Forming this podcast is our way of extending the community and the message of the community into the world. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 6AMERS podcast. My name is Skye Michaels. I'm the host of this podcast. I'm joined by the amazing Emily Bossert, my co-host. And today on the 6AMERS podcast, we are going to be interviewing Jen Groover. Jen is a motivational speaker, an inspirational person. She's an author. She authored a book called The More Method. And she's also a personal friend of mine from the Philadelphia area. This interview impacted me in ways that I did not anticipate. And Emily, let me ask you the question of what were some things that you took from this interview?
Oh, so many golden nuggets from this interview. If you are ready to be inspired, this is the interview for you. One of the things that Jen spoke about that really hit home for me was places of discomfort in our lives and how they can be really difficult, but we have to remember in those difficult places is actually where we do the work. Those are actually the experiences we need in order to grow to the next resilient level of ourselves. And she spoke about this at length and so impeccably that I am just hopeful that all of you hear her words this morning. Skye, what about you?
For me, I had this belief around creating my own reality, and I've been working on it. And then when I heard Jen speak, it just had a massive impact on me. And she talked a lot about how she is a big believer and proponent of shaping our own stories. No one else shapes our story but us. And it really coincided with this concept of I am the creator of my own reality. And we're the ones that get to decide what happens in our future as long as we take control of that. And we get to decide the experience we go through. We get to decide the direction we go through. And when we give up our power to other people, well, we're not creating our own reality. And that's a concept that I try to wake up every morning and think about, what reality am I going to create today for myself? And I hope everyone enjoys this interview. I hope you get a lot out of it. And with that, let's hear Jen.
Jen, if you don't mind, maybe give everyone a quick background of who you are and maybe a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I grew up right outside of Philadelphia and currently am living back to where I grew up. And then I'm off to Florida where it's nice and warm. I think that's a lot of people's plan, right? My kids will be going to college most likely in Florida too. So
Awesome.
It's been pre-programmed. But I am a serial entrepreneur, started my first business right out of college. Before it was actually cool to be an entrepreneur. Back then, people would be like, could you not get hired? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, what happened?
So I have been teaching human potential, human behavior in various forms ever since then. I'm also an author, global speaker, corporate trainer, and really just am all things obsessed about what takes people from good to great and apply that and walk my own walk in all my own businesses.
Awesome. Give us a little background. Let's start just on what was your first business, and then what are some of the businesses you've created since?
Sure. My first business I found by default in college, actually. I didn't even realize I was starting a business, but I had been an athlete my whole young life. And when we would work out, when we would train, you would usually be doing sprints and plyometrics because I played basketball and soccer and track, and you'd usually feel like you're going to be sick afterwards. So during a break from school, I went home and about to totally age myself, but I did a step aerobics class and I fell in love with it. And I wanted to bring it back to school with me. So I went through a training, got certified, went back to the administrators at my school and said, can you give me a space, 100 steps, and a boom box, literally a boom box.
Yeah.
Forgot to ask for a microphone, so I have a forever raspy voice since. But and then I took my college's party business model. You know, when you went to a party in college and they charge you like $3 for a cup.
Sure.
So that's what I did. I charged $3 for a class and started this group fitness program. And I fell in love with it. That was the first sense of that high that you just feel so high on life and can't believe that you created something. And I wanted to feel that feeling literally forever. So after college, my degree from college was in psychology and education. And I told my dad, I'm not going down a traditional education path. I'm going to continue to education in nutrition and physiology. Started my first real actual business in the fitness industry at gym in Wilmington, Delaware. Became a national level fitness competitor with Reebok, traveled the world. That's how I started to become what was coined as a motivational speaker. For me, I was just speaking about what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
At that point, I was blessed to be to be surrounded by all these incredible thought leaders on various aspects. But what I was obsessed with was mindset and the ability to control your mind, control your emotions, be able to think there was this organization that I was part of, much like you guys with the 6AMERS, but it was called the 3% Club, that teaches people how to think like the top 3% of the world. And so that really became my journey, was to take all those lessons from my mentors along the way and apply them and see how they really could accelerate growth in business. So I dabbled in a few other businesses at that same time and became a spokesperson on QVC for a lot of other brands, and became obsessed with how do you take this widget and turn it into millions of dollars. And was really curious as to the people around me doing that, and realized many of them were just like me. They didn't grow up with privilege. They didn't grow up super smart. They actually grew up with, in my case, dysfunction, and just had desire and determination to change their cycles and path in life. And so when I learned the formula of what makes a great product, especially on a platform like that, we were at that point selling $5,000 a minute just to stay on air.
Yeah.
Now it's way greater than that. And that was back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was that quota. So you can imagine the acceleration of growth since then. But when I had my twins in 2004, I was inspired by them and the chaos of my new mom life to invent my first ever product, inspired in the middle of a grocery store with two screaming babies. I was standing in line waiting to check out, and both of my kids began screaming, like the high-pitched screaming, crying. The one you're like, no.
Back chills.
Yes. And everyone's like covering their ears. And I'm trying to find my credit card and pay the cashier, and I couldn't find it. And I dumped my bag out trying to find it. And as I was leaving the grocery store, I thought to myself, seriously, we as women accept this bucket for a bag? It's literally a bucket. Like I could get lining and water and a mop, but it's a bucket.
Yeah.
Which was crazy to me. However, my mom had this mantra that you're not allowed to complain about something unless you back it up with a solution, which I really did not like at that stage of my life when I was younger. But what it taught my brain to do, and I encourage any parent who's listening to teach their kids this, it actually wires your child's brain to go from problem, complaint, to a solution. And so as I found myself complaining leaving the grocery store, I went to, well, what would I do to solve it? And then I went through the litany of self-doubt thoughts too. Like, I can't really draw. I'm not a designer. I'm not an engineer. Like, how would I solve this problem? And I went back to my normal life as a new mom, or I should say crazy life as a new mom of twins. And about 6 months later, there was this whole process that we could talk about later, but I don't want to draw this part of the story out too much. But there was this whole brain reprogramming that I went through. And about 6 months later, I found the solution to my problem in my dishwasher. Unloading my dishwasher one night. As I unloaded, since I was a child, that was my primary chore as a child. I was able to see into the utensil tray where the knives, forks, and spoons are. And I had a bird's eye view. I'm unloading the utensils, and I was like, wait a second. It's exactly how I want everything in my handbag to be compartmentalized with a bird's eye view. And so I took the dishwasher tray out of the dishwasher, and like any normal person, stuck it into my handbag, and that became the prototype of my first real big company. And
That's awesome.
2-year journey, patented it, and took it to market. And that became a tipping point of many other companies and TV and speaking engagements and things to follow.
Very cool. What a journey. So talk, yeah, one question came up early, mindset. Like you coach the mindset, you talk about mindset. Like as an entrepreneur, I think mindset is one of the most powerful things. Why, like, how do you try to empower people around creating positive mindsets, right? Because I think it's like, it's so easy to complain about stuff. Like I'm every person on this call could probably find 5 things to complain about today. Like I know I can easily do that, right? But at the end of the day, your mind is the most powerful thing. So how do you coach people? What are the techniques you give people around trying to get away from that mindset of complaining and solutions?
I just did this training the other day at this company, Barstool Sports. I'm sure some of you have heard of it before. But, there was a lot of people in there, a lot of alpha personalities that were thinking, oh, great, here comes this girl giving us this like positive mindset speech. And what are we going to learn from this? And so as much as I am positive and I teach positive mindset, I actually teach mindset and emotional control first and foremost. And the reason I say that is because in teaching emotional intelligence, I really do believe feeling the feelings if you are feeling something, but not staying stuck in the feelings.
Yeah.
So the mindset control is this awareness of I'm feeling this way right now, but how do I change my perspective and paradigm to take my power back and see it differently and see it in a more productive way? It might not be positive per se, but at least productive. So 2019 was one of the craziest, hardest years of my life, which is crazy because I had a really insane childhood too. So to say that was a really growth year for me. One of the many things is my daughter had Lyme disease, and they found she had significant brain damage. And we were in brain therapy. We couldn't figure out, she had complete autonomic dysfunction, but we couldn't figure that out for a while. And she was on bed rest, couldn't go to school. And my father passed away that year. That was just 2 things.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm going through that, it was hard, even as all the training that I had, to stay positive. And the days I couldn't get to a place of positive, I just stayed productive. And what I mean by that is when I would drive my daughter to brain therapy 5 days a week, we would both be in the car thinking this really stinks, right? However, if we stay in that negative thought, it's going to bring our energy down. It's not going to be as productive. It's giving your power away. And we would talk about how we're going to look back at this time and the growth that's going to happen from it. It's going to be incredible. And I'd say to Morgan, this is going to give you some purpose. I don't know what it is going to be, but I guarantee you this is attached to your perfect purpose in life. Yeah. And just to give a signal to that, she just had to write a thesis to get accepted into the social entrepreneurship program. And on her own created this platform for people with autoimmune and hard to heal disorders, to create a community, to create resources to doctors that are non-traditional that can actually help, and also to create a collective insurance program. Because I was like, wait, what? Because most people aren't insured for a lot of those ailments. So when you're going through something that's negative, you can turn it into a positive thought more productive thought by reframing it, knowing that in every obstacle in life, there's opportunities, and you might not see it in the thick of it, but when you know it's there, you can take those moments and turn them into, as I said, productive times, and times that you're strengthening your inner self to become stronger and better for whatever's on the other side.
Yeah.
And so while I do believe in being as optimistic and positive as possible, I'm also a realist too. So I say I teach mindset control and emotional control. So when the obstacles happen, you can withstand them and sustain emotional and mental equanimity as much as possible during those times, so you don't unravel.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of people like, like they put a happy face sticker on things, right? Like, oh, like this sucks. Like my daughter's going through Lyme disease and brain stuff. Like, I'm happy, I'm positive. No, I can not be positive, but I can be productive. And I love that angle. Because I
Yeah.
think it gives, to your point, it gives people power, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're like, oh my God. And then it's like a double whammy. Like, I'm not positive. Wait, this
Right.
sucks. And I'm not positive. Now I really, the shame cycle begins, right? It's like,
Or people try to say they put on the smiley face, but they're not even close to there. So then you get to this other side of emotional intelligence of stuffing down emotion.
yeah,
And stuffing down emotion isn't good either, because it's like a boat that's sinking, and then a hole pops. And then you plug the hole with the smiley face, but then another hole pops. And so it's better to me, from my experience, to take that, I'm going to use this to be productive and growth minded, and I'm going to stay open to the opportunities of growth. I'm going to look for the lesson. I'm going to learn my strength. The whole time during that time period, every day, my mantra is adversity is my sharpener. Adversity is my sharpener. And it just gave me strength. It didn't maybe make me like bouncing off the walls happy,
yeah,
but it
yeah,
gave me strength. And that's what you need in those times of adversity. And then when everything is, there's moments of your life in calm, you can then be in this state of complete appreciation and gratitude, and have it be authentic.
yeah. I love that. Jen, you mentioned like some of your challenges. Give us maybe a little background, if you're open to it, about like your
Sure.
childhood and like how did that shape who you are today?
Yeah, so I believe very much in our stages of life really form who we are, and it's important to acknowledge those different stages or situations or experiences, and I believe in sharing them too. So I'm always very transparent, because I believe our flaws are actually what connect us. I believe our vulnerability is what connects us, and especially as a speaker and a trainer, um, you know when you get into a place of giving advice, you need to let everyone know, hopefully at least that's true for most trainers and speakers, my advice never comes from something I haven't gone through,
Yep.
and only what I've gone through. And if someone asks me to give advice on something I've never been through, I would be honest, say, here's what I would only be able to assume, but I've never been through that feeling or emotion or stage, so I'm not really giving authentic advice. So, but for me, my childhood was very layered. My dad was from Chester. For any of you from the Philly area, grew up dirt poor, born at the tail end of the Depression, had a very scarcity mindset. He became a drill sergeant in the Marines. So he had a very authoritarian mindset too, very disciplinarian mindset. Everyone was scared of him, including myself. Um, my mom was this sassy, mouthy woman from Brooklyn, old school Italian, tenacious as all get out. Her and my dad fell madly in love pretty quickly. She had come to Philly for a photo shoot. She was actually one of the first models for 17 magazine. She was this very ethnic Italian looking woman, obviously. I did not get that side of the family, but the ethnic Italian, she had this ethnic Italian olive skin and this thick curly hair. And they were doing a photo shoot, and they tried to straighten her hair. And this was in the late 60s, where hair straightening just started. And her hair all fell out from the hair straightener. So my dad was an attorney in the DA's office at the time, and my dad became her attorney to represent her. And they, as I mentioned, fell quickly in love and got together and got married pretty quickly too. And my mom very quickly also found out the fun guy that she had been dating and got married to was a highly functioning alcoholic who became highly abusive in his personal space. So my mom, and then my brother, who's 11 months older than me, lived through that tumultuous life that you live through with a functioning or just an alcoholic in general who's abusive. I mentioned my dad was a Marine, so he had some post-traumatic stress. So you throw the tumultuous childhood, post-traumatic stress on top of the flames and fuel of alcohol. There was a lot of volatility and abuse. And my brother wound up saving my mom's life when I was 3, he was 4, and my mom got thrown down a flight of stairs and cracked her head open. And so there was a lot of trauma. And when I went to college, and this is how I got on my path, I had a lot of good self-survival skills where I could not allow the trauma to impede me as much as my brother allowed the trauma to impede him. I escaped in my imagination. I escaped in my friendships. I escaped in my sports. And he absorbed himself in it. So our lives became very different as adults. But when I went to college and I studied my first psychology class, I was just in awe of, wow, why doesn't everyone have to be here? Because if everyone studied psychology, like this should be mandatory in kindergarten, right? Like if everyone understood self better, we could break cycles, patterns, and make sense of ourselves and everything around us more and live in harmony so much more effectively. So I fell in love with psychology, understanding why we do what we do and why we repeat cycles and patterns, and was able to give my childhood such a sense of understanding and forgiveness, and then also an intention of the future to break the cycle. And so what was interesting, I mentioned I have a brother, he's only 11 months older than me, but he took the victim mindset of the same situation and became entitled, became angry, repeated the cycles. And I took what I now call the victor mindset, where the story I gave my childhood was one of survival, sustainability. I learned how to adapt and be independent, self-sufficient, and it really taught me a case study of my own home, that the meaning, the stories that we give our lives become the outcome of our lives. And I refuse to give that meaning of giving my power away and have, as I mentioned, a very different life because of it. But if you give your story as a victim story, that also becomes the outcome. And one of the first exercises I do with all of my clients and all of my workshops is teaching people you have to change the meaning of the stories that hold you victim, or you'll never change your future. Because even if your intention is to change the future, the stories of your past, the anger of your past will still be your subconscious beliefs of who you are and therefore your future. So, nothing has meaning until you give it meaning.
Yeah.
Is really what every story and experience of our lives come down to. So my lesson to that is, what meaning are you giving your stories? Does the meaning hurt you or help you? And it sounds so simple, and it kind of is. Are you giving your power away or taking your power back? And those are the only two choices you have.
Yeah.
Giving your power away or taking it back. What meaning are you giving it? Gives you the meaning of your present and your future. So, there was cool parts of my childhood too that also defined me. My mom, I mentioned, was this. So many people that know her are like, wow, you're just carrying her legacy on. She ran campaigns for politicians, and back in the 70s, that was very few women doing that. She was the one keynoting at the rallies, and I was door-to-door campaigning as 3 years of age and up, and my first job was putting the the water thing on the envelopes to put the envelopes closed and the stamps on. And she had a TV show where she really was supposed to be putting politicians on the hot seat, which she did, but she was obsessed with mindset too, and would always have professional athletes on and interviewing them on the mindset of what takes you from good to great. And I was in that studio as a child every day after school, and I did not like being there every day after school. I just wanted to be playing with my friends. But I believe just sitting there as a kid, even though I wasn't even paying attention and I was doing my schoolwork or I was playing, in my own space, all of those conversations were really getting in my subconscious mind and shaping my curiosity of the future of what takes good to great. And I discovered in college I just didn't have tolerance for myself to be mediocre.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do things just mediocre. I didn't want to be basic in how I did things in life. And I think my zest for that came from that studio and being in those environments, and just realizing that it was a choice. It was a choice to be comfortable or a choice to be uncomfortable and grow.
Yeah, very cool. That's awesome. And there's so many, there's so many nuggets. I wish I will go back and take them. But I think the best thing of that for me, you just said, was it only has meaning if you give it meaning, right? And in real estate, and even for the employees on the call, everything you do in real estate, you could give it meaning or not, right?
Yeah.
That the seller backed out of the deal. The person didn't call me back. Right? You can create meaning around it, or you can move on from it, and we have that choice. So
well, and a lot of people take things personally instead of saying, and this is the faith side of me, is something better was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So people be like, oh, I'm not a great agent, or I'm not effective, and what's wrong with me, and or blaming it on everybody else too, like everyone's a flake, no one follows through. Instead of going, oh no, adversity is my sharpener.
Yeah.
This is taking me to a place that I have to get stronger, better, adapt more, and then something better is going to come along. And just like when COVID happened, I was starting a book tour. You plan a book tour for a good 2 years in advance, and I was in Asia until March 7th, 2020, and came home and everything came to a screeching halt. I had over 120 speaking engagements and canceled. Nothing had happened like this before. They actually even sent our books back to the publisher at that time because they wouldn't take any new products. And I could have been angry. I could have blamed everything. I could have been a victim, but I sat and said, something great is going to come of this. I have to be on the lookout for that. I have to have my eyes open for that. And there's going to be new business opportunities, and it's going to force me to do things that I haven't had to do because, one of the things is just even I have people that will create funnels for me for different campaigns. But I always knew it was my responsibility to learn how to do it too. Even if I had someone else doing it, I would be better at it with the person doing it and giving direction if I learned how to do it. But it's a time consuming process. So I forced myself during that time period to learn how to do it so that I could do more effective campaigns. So when things do come up and you want to complain, like we said earlier, it seems like things aren't working out. The productive mindset is what better can come from this.
Yeah.
And so a lot of deals that maybe fall through, I would say a lot of agents will look back and be like, thank God that fell through.
Yeah. Jen, you have I think it's the Moore system, right?
More method.
Moore method. Can you give everyone a little bit about the Moore method?
Sure. So the Moore method was that latest book that was coming out during when COVID was starting. But the Moore method is a methodology that I created. It is a culmination of my 20 plus years of teaching human behavior in the obsession of how do we optimize human potential? How do we become our best version self? And I studied psychology, as I mentioned, in school, and then nutrition and physiology. And early on in my career, I'd bring all these elements together. And then this mindset training. I had some of the best mentors in the entire world. I know some of you on here would know one of my personal mentors that was definitely a tipping point for me was Bob Proctor back in 1999. So that was way before these conversations about law of attraction were happening and quantum physics. But
Can
Bob,
I just tell you something really ironic? Yeah, I post a question of the day with a video each,
yeah,
and yesterday's video was Bob Proctor.
get out.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so funny.
so cool.
Oh my God, I love it. So yes, everyone in here knows who Bob Proctor is. I love it. Well, that 3% club that I was a part of, it was a mastermind with 50 of us for 3 years. And Bob led it. I was 25 at the time. I was the youngest person by far in the group. And I just learned so much. And then was also, he exposed us to all his friends. And so I had this exposure to what was possible, which was mind bending from a lot of the people around me and what their thought processes was. And also in my fitness business, I was really lucky. All my clients were very, very, very successful. So I got to see this continuum of what's possible in life to validate my future and what I was envisioning for myself. But going back to the MORE method, it's bringing together the best of practices from psychology, physiology, nutrition, quantum physics, metaphysics, neuroscience, Buddhism. I've studied Buddhism for over 20 years. Buddhism to me, when I say it, for those to understand, it's not, I approach it as a lifestyle, not a religion. And I say that because Buddhism is a practice, just like yoga, just like meditation, a practice of your highest self actualization. And I was fascinated by the highest place of actualization, this ability to have desire and intention, but also faith to let go, that whatever's on the other side is better for you and part of your journey. So the MORE method brings together all of those elements into a simple formula to teach all of these high level philosophies or sciences in a way that anyone at any stage of life can understand it and take them from where they are to where they want to go. And MORE is an acronym that anytime you are stuck in life or you're at a place where you want to get more of anything you desire, and more doesn't necessarily just mean material things. More to me, more importantly, means the desires inside your soul. So inner peace, equanimity. I said equanimity earlier, and somebody said awesome word. Harmony, harmonious relationships, thriving health. When you have more of those things, you have more of everything else. So if we go for those inner mores, the outer mores could only fall into place. But M stands for mindfulness in all that you do. So in order to get more of everything in life, you have to be mindful. And mindfulness is elusive to a lot of people. So I created an auditing system in the book, and when I teach it and do lectures and trainings, to teach people how to make mindfulness more tangible so they become more reflective every day of evaluating their days and how can I do that better and how can I do that different? What do I need to shed from my life to make my life better? A lot of getting better isn't adding more into your life. It's actually getting rid of what's not working for you. And then the O stands for optimization of body and brain. So in order to get more of everything you want in life, if you optimize your physiological state, which you have control of, we all do, then you can optimize, or what you do to your physiological state. Let me be clear. We have control of every day, all day, how we sleep, how we eat, how we hydrate, what we do to our bodies will affect our mental and emotional state. So when I ask people what they want more of, everyone says time, money. This helps you time hack so that your body is optimized. You're more productive, more mentally clear, more energized, more creative, more strategic, more magnetic to everybody else. So when you optimize your physiological state, you're a magnet for more. And life, you're working smarter than harder. And so a lot of people don't think about that when I say it. They never put together like how they ate was holding them back from being more productive because they were in mental fogs all day, every day, and they were tired and they were eating sugar in the middle of the day. So they were on this energy roller coaster. And I believe in energy management, stamina for success. So I eat in the way I think like an athlete in business. And I'm not saying I don't love pasta, but I'm not eating it in the middle of the workday ever because I'd be exhausted. So, and then the R stands for responsive versus reactive life. That's the emotional intelligence component, teaching people how to respond, teaching people how to get emotional control so that they can be more calm. And there was this movie, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, that I saw about 15 years ago when it first came out that summarized all of this for me. It was like Karate Kid. There's a master and the student. The student wants to learn a skill, gets mad at the master because the master's making him go through the fundamental process of understanding versus just here's the skill, repeat it. And the student gets mad, freaks out at the master, and the master stays calm and says, fools react, warriors respond. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be the warrior. I don't want to react and act like a fool.
Yeah.
And so anytime I started wanting to react to things in life, I would say that mantra, fools react, warriors respond. And that mantra would give me emotional control. So much of changing your mind, and this is all part of the R part of the MORE method. I created what I call mindset shifts. We can reprogram our brain. This is the neuroscience part. We can reprogram our brain at any moment, but it takes flipping an old belief to a new belief and then creating a new neural pathway in your brain. And the new neural pathway weakens the old neural pathway. So the new belief can weaken the old belief. Essentially, that's what that means. When you create a new belief, you have to affirm the new belief. You have to strengthen the new neural pathway in the brain. So a lot of you have heard of affirmations. This is the meaning of affirmations. An affirmation is the repetitive mechanism to strengthen the new neural pathway in your brain. So you can't just create a new belief and be like, okay, fools react, warriors respond. You have to repeat that affirmation, especially in the height of the challenge of being confronted with the old behavior to create the new behavior over and over again, so that the new behavior eventually just becomes who you are, your subconscious mind, moving from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind. And so in the R part of the MORE method and in the book and in the training, I teach these mindset shifts, one being also nothing has meaning until you give it meaning, so that people can get emotional control in an instant by repeating an affirmation to give them that control. And then the E stands for excelling in all aspects of life. I, like you, Skye, believe in holistic success. Success isn't just your professional achievements, and yes, that's nice. I mean, your professional achievements, which is great. But I believe there's 4 core quadrants of our lives, and professional achievements, one of them. Health and well-being is another one. Relationships, or the health of your relationships, is the other, and your personal evolution. And we should be fueling all 4 core quadrants of our life every day. But unfortunately, a lot of people are taught if you're just successful in business, everything else will be successful, and that's not true. That's where the midlife crisis comes in for a lot of people. And then all of a sudden the kids are going off to college and they're like, who are those kids I'm paying for college? So I teach holistic success because that's where fulfillment comes in. When we're holistically successful in our relationships, in our health, in our personal evolution, and then undoubtedly our professional achievements, you feel fulfilled. And that's really what people are striving for in their strive for success, is fulfillment. So when we nurture all those 4 core quadrants of our lives, it's like putting air in your tire whenever it's needed versus changing a tire when it's flat.
Yeah, I love that. That is so cool. And I know, I'm pretty sure you may see a little spike in book sales today.
I love it. I love it.
I think-
Yes, thank you. I love it. It's on Amazon, the More Method. Yes,
I think
please.
someone posted the link. And Jen, last question I have for you is if you had one piece of advice for every entrepreneur on the call, and we have a lot of employees on the call as well, what would your piece of advice be for people as we head into 2022?
Can I give two?
Yep, you can do anything you want.
Okay. So for number one, growth equals happiness. So continue growing like you are right now. Continue getting on calls like this, reading books, listening to podcasts and webinars, things that are bending your mind, bending your perception as it exists today to keep taking you to new realms. And the others have more fear of regret than you have a failure. Regret at the end of your life is a lot worse than trying something and maybe it didn't turn out exactly the way you wanted it to, but you grew in the process.
Yeah.
Failure is only failure when you give up and become a victim. But no person in this world became really successful without failing along the way. And failure to me is just part of the process on the journey to success, to retool, rework, refine, and get better.
Yeah. And so growth equals happiness. Is that
Growth equals happiness and have more fear of regret than you have a failure.
I'm going to steal that line today, Jen, and
Good.
I'm going to use that
Please.
today in my training.
Please.
So
I love it.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So, well, Jen, such an awesome, I can't believe we were at the end of this call. Like I literally have so many more questions I want to ask you, but so we may have to bring you back on if you've been willing to join and, really impactful morning for a lot of people. So I cannot thank you enough. For sure.
Thank you. I don't want to thank everyone for the comments. I really have read all of them. So thank you all. And I look forward to staying connected with you. It's literally just my name on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So I love staying connected with all of you.
It's awesome.
Thanks for listening to the 6AMers podcast. If you liked what you heard on this episode, we'd love to hear from you. So leave a comment, review, and don't forget to subscribe. For more information on the 6AMers community, guests, book recommendations, and more, visit our website at the6amers.com. We also invite you to follow us on Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and fun. See you next time.